Hey everyone, John Cora here, Marketing Director for McClinton Mitsubishi, and today I'm going to show you how the new Outlander compares to the old one. Let's watch. My right is a 2018 model. This is used, and I wanted to do a 2020, but inventory is so short-handed right now that I kind of just had to get what we get. We actually had this one traded in recently, so it will be our stand-in for 2020. And then to the left is the all-new 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander. Now, I do want to let you know that these vehicles are not apples to apples. The one on the right is an ES model, so it's an entry-level trim. The one on the left is an SE. The one on the right is all-wheel control. The one on the left is not. So just bear with me. We're going to do the best that we can in this situation. So obviously, one of the biggest things you're going to notice that's different on the new body style is the styling. It is night and day difference. They don't even look like the same vehicle. I mean, they are, but they're not. Nothing on this 2022 is the same as the 2018 model. Every panel on this vehicle, every piece of trim, everything is different. The engine's different, the wheels and tires are different, literally everything. Nothing was carried over from one vehicle to the next. So it's a couple inches wider, a couple inches bigger. You have more of a wheelbase on the new model, more interior volume, and just overall it's a much, much bigger vehicle. So one of the reasons why it's so different is that this old generation had been around since like 2012. They did not do any significant changes to the vehicle during that time. Now, yes, there were some updates and some mid-cycle refreshes, but the vehicle has not been changed completely since around 2012. It's important to note that also this new one, the 2022, is based off the Nissan Rogue, and my goal is to hopefully do a comparison between the Nissan Rogue and this vehicle sometime soon if we can, if I can get a hold of one, just to show you the differences. Spoiler alert, the Mitsubishi version is a lot better. I will actually put in some pictures here so you can see some of the differences between the Rogue and the Outlander, but I hope to do a full review of both vehicles pretty soon. So once again, we're not comparing apples to apples. This is the ES trim on the 2018, but you'll notice it has 18-inch alloys standard. 18-inch alloys are standard on the new Outlander too, so if you get like the ES trim, it will have those 18-inch alloys, but it'll be different than that one. This one, of course, has 20-inch rims on the SE. These rims are the same that you'll get on the SEL as well, so these are your top-of-the-line rims. But really, just look at the headlights. You know, that's one of the biggest differences you'll see is like the headlights are completely different. This up here on the new 2022 is a driving light. That's not the headlight. Down here is your headlight, your turn signal, and then also your fog light. So you got headlight, high beam, turn signal, fog light here. We go back to the 2018. That is your headlight. Down there is your driving light. That's your turn signal. Down here's where your fog light would have been. So the headlight cluster is completely different than before. So that's something that you'll notice right off. This vehicle looks a lot more modern overall. So here's how the back end styling has changed. Once again, you're gonna see a big difference. You have your LED taillights back here, and then over here, these are incandescent. Once again, the styling on the back is completely different than before. You're gonna see that, like for instance, the backup lights are down there. On the new 2022, the backup lights are over here. And then there are your amber turn signals. So just a few minor styling differences. I will say the rear end is not as dramatically different as the front end. That's just one of those things that you'll notice too. All right, so let's talk about the interior now. And let's start here in the 2018. All right, so styling here isn't bad, but I think it's safe to say that this is indeed a dated interior. You'll notice that you have a relatively small screen here for your infotainment system. You do have like dual zone climate control. Down here you have your, what we will now call an old school gear selector. Of course, there's your all-wheel drive setting. And then this one doesn't have like an electronic parking brake. That would change in like 2019, 2020, but once again, we're dealing with an ES here, so not everything's gonna be the same as an SEL or a GT. This one doesn't have the push button start, but that was available, once again, ES mode. The steering wheel controls are dramatically different here. I mean, this is pretty standard. You have your cruise, you have your phone controls here for the Bluetooth, and then like this is one of the biggest differences is the gauge cluster. Now on this ES and pretty much every trim of the old Outlander, you had these old analog gauges, the very small screen there in the middle. No matter which trim level you got, even the PHEV, this was your gauge setup. And the new one's completely different. You'll see here in just a second. Of course, there's your vents, your glove box, all that fun stuff. And while this one does not have a sunroof in it, the sunroof is dramatically different now on the new one. Let's now hop over to the 2022 and show you the differences there. All right, so here we are inside it already. Everything's dramatically different. You'll see a much larger screen here for the infotainment system. And let's go ahead and get it started up. Let's turn that music off so we don't get a copyright hit. And let's go ahead and turn off the HVAC system so we can hear me fine. One of the first things you're going to notice is down here in the gauges, or sorry, in the gear selector. This is an electronic gear selector, so it's no longer are you shifting back. It's all different. You push the button for park, for instance. Over here you have your electronic parking brake. Now in the old one it was a handle that you pulled up. This one is electronic. You just pull it up there to engage the parking brake. You push it down to disengage. Auto hold. Now auto hold was available in the 2018, but that one doesn't have it. And then you have these drive modes here. This is a world of difference for the all-wheel drive system, or in this case the front-wheel drive system also has drive modes. So it's crazy how much different that is. Of course, you got your heated seat controls, dual zone climate control. This one does not have a heated steering wheel, but a heated steering wheel is available. And of course, down here is your wireless charging pad for your Apple device or your Android device. There are your vents. And you'll notice Mitsubishi Connect. That was not available in the old Outlander. It was first available in the Eclipse Cross, but now it is available in the Outlander. With that, you can set your climate control, you can start the vehicle from your phone, you can do all kinds of wild stuff with that. But here is the gauge cluster, and this is where we're going to see the biggest difference between the two vehicles. Now, I will preface this by saying, if you get the ES, you do not get this digital gauge cluster, but it's still more advanced than what we saw there on the 2018. On the SE and the SEL, you do get the digital gauge, and it's wild how much you can do with this. Of course, you can cycle through everything. There we go. So yeah, it's wild how much you can do this. You can cycle through everything here. You can, go to like your driver assistant. You can adjust like your blind spot monitoring. You can turn that on and off. I like leaving it on myself. But all of that was not available on that old 2018. Of course, you got your tachometer there on the left. You got your speedometer there on the right. It's night and day difference between the two vehicles. Of course, even your steering wheel controls are a little bit different. Like this one, once again, on the SE and the SEL, except for the launch editions, you have my Mitsubishi My Pilot, which is awesome. Your cruise control settings, your phone settings are over here. Once again, night and day difference. I do want to mention that this one also has the stereo upgraded from Bose. On the old ones, if you got the upgraded stereo, it was Rockford Fosgate. Now it's Bose. I kind of like that a lot better. And then up here are like your steering wheel. Up here is your sunroof controls, your interior light controls, and all that fun stuff too. Let's take a look at the back seats and see how they've changed also. So let's take a look at the back seat, or the middle row, if you will, of the 2018. We come in here, it's pretty standard. There's not a whole lot of storage. There is some here, like in the door, like there's a place there you can put like a water bottle or something, but you just get like the one map pocket back here. And I will say they were upgraded for 2020, the back seats were, but honestly, it's night and day difference between the new one and the old generation. So let's take a look at the new one. First thing you're going to notice is this back door opens wider than the old generation. So if you have like a child seat, for instance, to put in and out of this, it's gonna be a lot wider, so you can get that in and out, which is great for anyone who has small kids and child seats. Check out the back seat here on the new Outlander. You have a spot for like an iPad. There's a spot for your phone. There's your traditional map pocket, and it's on both seats. I also love that this is a 40-20-40 split as opposed to a 60-40. So you can have two passengers in here and put like lumber, for instance, if you need to, or skis there in the middle. Also, if you get the SEL Touring, which is the very tippy top of the trim level, you can get a sunshade there too. So you don't have to buy one of those flimsy aftermarket ones if you have like kids in the back or anything. Also, this isn't available on the SE, but on the SEL Touring, you can get, actually the SEL as well, you can get heated rear seats. Of course, you see the rear vents there. The old generation Outlander did not have rear vents. It actually came from underneath the seats there. So now you actually have dedicated rear vents for your passengers. All right, now let's go under the hood of these vehicles. On the older generation, you have the 2.4 liter four cylinder. Now, I do want to mention that a 3 liter V6 was an option in the Outlander. That V6 option is now gone for the 2022 model year. And a lot of people were like, well, I want that option. Honestly, we sold and Mitsubishi sold so few of those V6 engines that it didn't make sense for that to be an option going forward. So this old one is a 2.4 liter. It is a four cylinder, and it had 166 horsepower. Coming here to the new 2022 Outlander, it's actually a 2.5 liter four cylinder engine, and it produces 181 horsepower. So you do get a little bit of a horsepower increase over the previous generation with the new 2022 model. And you can really notice that a lot while you're driving. So I've driven both of these vehicles, and I will say that the new 2022 model feels a lot more speedy. It feels a lot more responsive with the throttle. Plus, you got the drive modes, and they made changes to the transmission too. So all of that makes a big difference when we're talking about horsepower. All right, so that's pretty much a good look at the differences that you can see. I will also say that the way that these vehicles drive is also completely different. As I mentioned before, the engine is a lot more responsive than the 2022. And I've actually had a lot of people who've driven both. So like our owner, she has a PHEV, and a couple other friends of mine who have had the old generation Outlanders. We all say that the new one feels a lot more planted, and it feels a lot more stable, like for instance in turns. So another thing to consider when you're looking at like the new versus the old is also the way the vehicle rides.
A few moments later.
Uh-oh, the car changed. I had to switch vehicles, and there was a customer that came by, so it's much later in the day, but this is actually more of an app comparison with two silver Outlanders. Once again, that's 2018, 2022 on the left. But just to finish what I was saying, one of the biggest differences between these two vehicles is the ride. The new one feels so much more stable, especially if you're going through the turns, and it handles bumps a lot better. It's not to say that this old generation is bad. It's still a great vehicle. And especially on the secondary market, if you're looking for a great deal on a 3-year-old crossover, you have to consider a used Mitsubishi Outlander. But if you're looking for a brand new ride with all the technology, all the safety features, and all the fun stuff, the 2022 is the way to go. It's bigger, it's better, it's more efficient. And now that this is an all-wheel drive one, I do want to point out my favorite differences. There are the headlight washers on the 2022. And of course, the old generation doesn't have it. But no matter how you look at it, Mitsubishi does create great vehicles. So if you're looking at a new one or a pre-owned one, you're not going to go wrong no matter what. It's important to mention that both these vehicles, one new, one used, they both come with Lit Million. That's our 10-year, 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The new one, it starts to the date of my car, covered for 10 years. On the used one, it starts from the model year. So this one's covered until 2028. And I did not check the mileage on this 2018, but let's say hypothetically it's 30,000 miles. Well, then you are covered for 970,000 miles after that on the powertrain. So there's 2 Outlanders, one new, one pre-owned. No matter what, they're both Mitsubishis and they're both great cars. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to comment. We love answering your Mitsubishi questions. We've been a dealer since 1989. We are reputable in the Mitsubishi world. We're really putting a focus on Mitsubishi for 2021 and beyond. We're also a Chevrolet dealer, so if you want to know how this compares to like the Equinox, for instance, or really any vehicle, ask below. We do ask that you like and subscribe so that we can build our audience bigger. And if there's something else that you want to see or a feature on this vehicle that you want to know about, comment below. We try to get them as quickly as possible. It is difficult with our team here. And like one of the reasons why I had to shoot this video in 2 different segments was I was needed elsewhere. So we'll try to get to your questions as quickly as possible. But we do appreciate everyone watching, and we hope you have a great day.